Of the Dickinson City Council to order. Item 1, call to order and certification of quorum.
Councilmember Simpson.
Here.
Councilwoman Simpson, absent. Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Skipworth.
Here.
Councilmember Brantley.
Here.
Councilmember Decker.
Here.
Councilmember Linton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you join me for item 2, the invocation, Councilman Simpson, could you lead us, please?
Let us pray. O Lord our God, we love you, we honor you, we praise your holy name. Every good and perfect gift comes from above. We thank you for this opportunity to gather once again to do the work of this city. We ask a blessing upon those who are here and those who are with us virtually and those who are unable to join. We ask that this meeting be effective and efficient and that it does the work for your people. We ask a blessing upon the city, its staff, its officials, the citizens, this county, this state, and this nation. It is in your name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. All right, we have item 4, proclamations, and we do have a proclamation this evening, so I'm going to come up to the front, and we have some guests here with us. If you all would like to join me up there, please come on up. If you want to go on either side or whatever, that way everybody can. Awesome. Okay. All right, so I have a proclamation this evening. Whereas the Pilot Club International was chartered on October 18th, 1921 in Macon, Georgia by 40 local businesswomen. The women had envisioned not just a local club, but an international organization from the beginning. The name Pilot was inspired by the mighty riverboat pilots of that day who represented leadership and guidance. Whereas the Pilot Club of Dickinson, organized by the Pilot Club of Lamarck, Texas, met in its first regular session on February 2nd, 1953, at a banquet in the school cafeteria on March 23rd, 1953. The charter was represented by District 8 Governor Judy Bishop. Pilot International President-elect Margaret Dimmerling was the speaker, and Ann Tackard was installed as president of this charter club of 24 members. Whereas, in 1963, a new project, the Loan Closet for sick room supplies, was started and was a great success. The Pilot Club of present day still operates a loan closet on the grounds of the VFW, loaning wheelchairs, walkers, and other medical supplies to those in need. Over the years, they have had numerous fundraisers to aid those in need as well as contribute to other organizations. They currently have 27 members and are growing under the leadership of President Cindy De Palermo. Whereas, they currently support the Fire Department of Dickinson, Mayor's Memorial Library, M.I. Lewis Galveston County Food Bank, scholarships for graduating seniors, Independence Village in Texas City, and assist with the Dickinson Christmas Rotary Parade and the Community Thanksgiving Dinner. They also support the Dickinson Chamber of Commerce, and they participate in the Mardi Gras Ball and the Dickinson Festival of Lights. They have sponsored the 4th of July Parade for several decades. They contribute to the Traumatic Brain Injury Campus and participate in Brain Minders program. And whereas, for over a century, pilots have upheld the principles of friendship and service. Now, therefore I, Sean Skipworth, Mayor of the City of Dickinson in the great state of Texas, do hereby proclaim October 18th, 2022 as Dickinson Pilot Club Founders Day. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Dickinson, Texas to be affixed this 11th day of October 2022. You thank me, excuse me. You thank me and congratulating everyone up here and thanking them for all the work they do on the community. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Present this to all of y'all. Good to see everybody. Welcome. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, announcements and presentations. Announcements concerning items of community interest. No action will be taken or discussed. Council member comments regarding items of community interest in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.0415. Item 5A, council comments. This evening, we'll begin with Councilman Simpson. We missed you last meeting, so I'll let you go first.
Thanks, Mayor, Council, City staff, citizens, welcome. Glad to be here today. Since the last time I had an opportunity to do council comments, I was able to support, along with Councilmember Linton, Councilmember Simpson's heron that was unveiled at Gators. Also have gone to the HGAC meeting, and also this past week attended the Texas Municipal League annual conference. Got a lot of education there, went to some trainings on economic development, downtown development, working with your state legislature, how to apply for federal grants for transportation, and a few other things. I think TML is a great resource for newly elected officials and the seasoned vets to continue to learn how things are done, not only elected officials, but those who work for the city as well. Thank you. One more thing, I do want to extend condolences to the family of Christy Matthews. She passed away last week. Dear friend of the family, also served for a while as a city attorney for the city of Atlanta, Georgia, but she was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and she recently passed. And I do want to extend condolences to her family as well.
All right, thank you. Councilman Wilson.
Yes, I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight, and my wife's a member of the Pilot Club also. Of course, she couldn't be here tonight. Her grandchildren took a preference over that. Anyway, there is quite a few more members of what you saw tonight, and they really do a lot for the community. I mean, when she said she was going to join that, I went, what do y'all do? Nothing? Have coffee? They do a lot more. Anyway, everything seems to be going in the right direction in town. Personally, I am glad that the budget is done and we're into our new fiscal year. We're looking for great things from staff and from greater things from the city manager. So you're on notice. Thank y'all.
All right, Councilman Brantley.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Since the last council meeting, I was able to attend the Bow Wow Meow Luau function. Did I say that right? Okay, great. Put on by the Bayou Animal Services and Bayou Friends Forever. Great job, Mr. Boakes, Colin, Ed, Fred, Ed. Great job. You guys did an excellent job. Awesome event. I think if I heard Mr. Coker correctly, Ed, you guys were able to raise a little over $10,000 bucks. Pretty close. Awesome. Good. So it was an excellent event. You guys did a great job. Had a lot of fun. Very neat. So congratulations. Other than that, I have Dickinson First United Methodist Church has Fall Festival slated for October the 22nd. They're still needing vendors. So if you are interested in being a vendor for the Fall Festival at the United Methodist Church, you can contact the church, find them on Facebook. They're accepting vendors up until next Wednesday, which is the 19th. So anybody that's interested in being a part of the Dickinson United Methodist Church Fall Festival, please get signed up. If you know somebody who's interested in being a vendor, please send them that way. You can find them on Facebook, Dickinson First United Methodist Church. Beyond that, I think that's all I got. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilman Decker.
Welcome to everyone that came. The Festival Lights, we've moved all the buildings, cookie factory, concession, the connexes, everything's out there, all the lights that we need to change. A lot of work still to be done, and we need a lot of help from Scouts, Little League, anybody that can spend a couple of hours out there, we would appreciate it, because we're shooting for 100% of everything that we have out there to have it up. But we need help. Thank y'all. every Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 3. Anybody can come, bring the family, they can help. I've seen the children put it up and then they come out and can't believe the way it looks. So hope you can get some help to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Linton.
Can you hear me? There we go. I'd like to second Councilmember Brantley's comments about the shelter event. Awesome job, Ed. The fire dancers were really cool. I hope to see them again next year. And I'm glad that the shelter was able to get, close to $10,000 in funds. I also wanted to thank, I performed at the event with one of the bands I play with, and I wanted to thank those guys for donating all their efforts. Anthony Pushkash, Ken Harms, and which drummer did we use? And Ray, I can't forget Ray, Ray Plummer. Those guys donated all their efforts, the PA system and everything that night, and I wanted to thank them for that. Also, wanted to thank TJ Alds for donating his MC talents. He's got a really busy schedule, and I asked him several times to do it, and he acquiesced, so thanks again, TJ. Also, I participated in a national night out, visited several neighborhoods in town with Dickinson Police Department Chief Ron Morales. I was unaware of this event until recently, and it was a privilege to get out and meet with citizens and neighbors from all over the city. And the Boudin was pretty good, too. Also attended the TML annual conference and exhibition in San Antonio with Councilman Mr. Simpson over there, along with Theo and Council Member not Brantley, but Simpson and Wilson. It was an interesting first time for me. Learned quite a lot, mainly cybersecurity. I'm going to get with Renee this week and tell him what I learned there. The last thing that I have is that a friend of mine, my neighbor of 10 years, Russ, passed away right before the TML concert or event there in San Antonio. I just wanted to mention real quick, Russ Coffey was a member of this community, him and his wife Joy, for 20 years. It was a perfect example of how this country is currently so divided, how two neighbors can completely disagree about politics and get along. I supported him. That's the way I was raised. And he supported me when I needed help. He was a good old boy. He could fix anything. Redneck engineering is what he would call it. He had an engineer living next door to him, and he made me feel like a fool on a regular basis. The guy could fix anything. It was amazing. I'm going to miss you, Russ. And anyway, that was the last thing I had.
Great, thank you. I'd also like to welcome everybody this evening, and I have a few things. I want to echo what everyone said about the animal shelter event. It was really great. Put on a wonderful event. I'm glad to hear we raised some money out there too. I hope we keep it up, and real impressed with all the work everybody did on that. So, and we all learned how to properly eat the food. So the only event I've been to where they like, no, you're all eating the food wrong. You're supposed to eat it this way. So we even had instructions. So anyway. Also like to note that early voting is going to start relatively soon here in the great state of Texas. So please, it's really too late to register at this point. I think the deadline might have been today. Might be off on that. I think it was today. So, kind of decide what you want to do. Look at the races from the county ballot to the national and all that, and go out in there and vote and have good turnout. So, I also want to send congratulations to the Gator Band, who's doing very well in competitions this year. And I think there's another competition they're going to be going to soon. I saw. Anybody? When is that? Regional? Is that this weekend or soon? I can't recall, but they're moving on. So they're doing a great job. And as a former band nerd, I have to take a moment to shout out to them. So there you go. Also, I want to echo, I know the PD was active at some of the National Night Out events, so thank you for that, and being out there and connecting with the community. And then also like to say, no one else brought this up, happy early birthday to our city manager, who made staff wait most of the day to have a surprise party for him. So we finally prodded him to get him to show up. So, but anyway, happy birthday, and glad we haven't killed you yet. Made you pass out yet? Okay, moving on. We also have the HGAC update, and so I'll turn it back over to Councilman Simpson.
Mayor, I had one last thing. Is that
Yes.
okay? I participated in the Texas City Sprint Triathlon, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, and obviously I survived. I talked to the event organizer. It looks like a potential event that may benefit the community in the future. The bayou is a perfect place for a swim. It's protected from the chop of the bay, and we have plenty of room for, it was a 525-yard swim, 15-mile bike ride, 3.2-mile run. And so we have room in the city, and I'll check out what happened with, the economic impact to the city of Texas City, but I think it'd be a good idea. It's something to look at in the future. That was it.
Okay, Fred, you probably need to back away just like an inch from your mic. You're getting,
Okay.
that's the wrong way, but we'll work on that. You're okay, you get a little distorted. Gotcha.
It has this ominous,
I see.
feel to it. That's why
We're
I'm
not at
saying.
mission control. This isn't, coming through. Coming through that way.
Terminated.
And I actually have one other thing to add. I forgot. I want to congratulate y'all. So you remember a few weeks ago we hit that asteroid right up there. They moved it. They moved. They wanted to move it.
Dimorphos, they changed the orbit of
ahead, say it.
Dimorphos
Okay.
by 32 minutes.
Yep. They
Am I
were
still
expecting
too
10,
close?
but they did 32. So
Am I still too close?
yes.
Yes.
Just turn it off.
All right.
Just cut it off. Councilman Simpson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I also forgot to mention that I attended the Bow Wow, Meow, and Luau. I know I said that wrong. And also National Night Out. As far as HGAC, they've taken another step to secure the $15 million that is coming to Dickinson for the drainage solutions. I had no idea you had to vote that many times on funding. I think since I've been going to HGAC, we've probably voted on this about 8 times, but it's moving each step closer in order to approve. There's also an opportunity we may want to look into. There's another $62 million available for Harvey funding. But that has to be applied in conjunction with other cities. They're only allowing joint projects to apply for that amount of money. So we'd have to city or Texas City or something like that in order to access that funding. There's also going to be a caucus meeting that was scheduled for the first week of November. But when I talked to the HGAC reps at TML, they said they're thinking of pushing that back. Right now, Dickinson currently does not have a vote, a direct vote. We'd have to get in the caucus and work my way up that way in order to get onto the board for a vote. But that vote happens sometime in November. But that's all that's going on with HGAC right now.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 5B, the city manager update. And I'll turn it over to our city manager, Theo Melanson.
Mayor, Council, thank you very much. Just wanted to remind everybody that next week I'll be at the American Planning Association Texas Chapter Conference to present on ArcGIS Urban and how we're going to be utilizing it in Dickinson to go along with our Unified Development Code and Land Use Plan. Also attended TML conference with several council members, as well as the International City County Management Association conference. Also was informed that next ICMA, which will be in Austin, that I'll be a likely presenter at the international conference that's coming to Texas next year. So I'm very excited to represent Dickinson on at an international level. Oak Park Drive is currently delayed due to lime shortages, so so our contract date was extended to October 26th. That's probably going to go beyond October 26th, but we are making slow progress there. But we are working with the contractor on that as we speak. In regard to the Nickel Stone project, we've informed Lucas Construction that we will be withholding about $300,000 of the retainage for us to be able to fix issues that are in the project area for Nickel Stone. We are signing off on the purchase orders for our asphalt projects and ditch clearing. So you'll be seeing some work starting up with the new fiscal year very shortly. We'll be working on our CDBG grant every couple of years. About $350,000 comes available to the city through the Community Development Block Grant. And so we'll be looking at identifying a project that meets all of the LMI, low to moderate income percentages necessary to unlock that funding. Also, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be scheduling a meeting with Hewitt Zollers and Friesen Nichols on getting some projects, large regional size projects for the city of Dickinson on the statewide drainage plan through the Texas Water Development Board. This doesn't mean we'd be getting funding immediately, but just like anything you do with TxDOT, HGAC for that matter, you have to get on that 40-year plan to then get on the 10-year finance plan to then get the funding. So we have no projects right now sitting in that high-level 40-year plan. So we need to start getting our projects on that plan so that we can then start working it into funding projects. So we'll be beginning that process in the next couple of weeks with Hewitt Zollers. Goodman Corporation is working on the mobility plan. They're really focusing on 2 projects right now to then bring to HGAC for the next round of funding, and that is going to be working on safety at Baker and 517, as well as pedestrian safety on Farm to Market 1266 as well. So just keep that on your radars. We will be bringing that to HGAC and TxDOT for future funding. We do have 6 other shovel-ready projects that will be coming through our mobility plan, but these are the first 2 that we're going to roll out for funding. Lastly, I did want to thank Renee. We at the very last minute, Stacy is not feeling well, our facilities manager. Hopefully he's feeling better. And so we had a very hot council chamber coming into at about 6:45-ish, and thankfully, due to Renee, we won't have to smell like a big bag of onions in this room. So thank you, Renee, for that. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 6, public comments. Members of the public are invited to give comments at this time, lasting not longer than 3 minutes. Comments may be general in nature or may address a specific agenda item and should be directed at the entire council, not individual members of council or staff. Any speaker making personal attacks or using vulgar or profane language shall forfeit his or her remaining time and shall be seated. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate. And signed up first, we have Dean Delaney. If you'd please give your name, I just did, and your address.
Yes, Dean Dellery, 650 North 646. Good evening, Council. Good evening, citizens of the great city of Dickinson. I'm here tonight with my business partner, and 2 weeks ago, we were also here from what we were told by Yvonne Briscoe was a routine special use permit extension hearing. Well, it was most certainly not that. To provide some background to the citizens in the crowd and some of the newer faces I see on City Council, my business partner and I recently purchased some land on FM 646 just south of Dickinson Bayou. For those of you not familiar with the area, it is a part of the city that was annexed about 20 years ago and mostly includes large tracts of land with about 9 to 10 acres per tract. Most of the area is forested with a few small businesses nearby. This part of the city is not currently serviced by any water or sewer utilities. I want to repeat, not currently serviced by any water or sewer utilities, and FM 646 is a major state highway with 5 lanes across with a speed limit of 55 miles an hour. As I mentioned, we purchased this tract of land after receiving a special use permit approval from City Council a year ago in a 5-1 majority vote. And 2 weeks ago, Council pulled the bait and switch with that denial after real dollars have been spent on my partner and I's behalf. This facility is intended to be a high-end establishment housing expensive toys, boats, and RVs for local and non-local individuals. To clarify, this is not a trailer park, a washateria, or another trashy gas station. This is a highly secured Class A place to store boats and RVs for which there's overwhelming need and not enough supply. Last week, our voices were suppressed, and we were denied the right to continue pursuing our business dreams. During this meeting, our project was unjustly characterized by multiple participants at that meeting, and I'd like to address some of those concerns and mischaracterizations. Let's start with the reason why we requested the SUP extension, i.e. why we still don't have a building permit 1 year later. I want council and the citizens of Dickinson to be aware of the amount of turnover that has occurred since we got this approved last year. As of today, there is a new senior planner, a new building official who just started a few weeks ago, and a new fire marshal, all extremely critical pieces to meeting our timeline, and all of which were not here a year ago when we got this approved. This caused delays. We had 3 formal pre-development meetings. Why was that even necessary? I'm still not sure, but my business partner and I basically had to re-explain our plans every few months to new and interim members of the city staff. The building/review process was basically being assembled as we went along, and we were the guinea pigs. Don't get me wrong, we think Yvonne has done a tremendous job implementing and creating new processes that will be long-term fixes for the city. But in the short term, it heavily delayed her team's ability to respond to our requests, provide feedback, and make any decisions. So I would not characterize these delays as the inability to meet staff's comments, using some of the language from last week. And let's be truthful here. Aside from a few fire concerns, the city didn't really have any comments, or didn't provide many comments during the pre-development process. It would take weeks for the fire marshal to respond to our emails, calls, and our requests for meetings.
Your time has expired. Thank you. Next up, we have Matt Werner. If you give your name and your address, please.
Matt Werner, 650 North 646, and go Astros. I want to talk about, there were some comments made on the same project that my business partner was just presenting about the sales tax revenue that may or may not be coming from our project. The truth is that this project does generate sales tax, as the code allows for sales tax to be charged on any vehicle that has wheels. And when you combine that with the property taxes that would come from spending almost $10 million on a piece of dirt, it's going to be providing as much tax revenue as a Chick-fil-A, which is the highest grossing fast food restaurant in the country. And this was presented when we did the plan. And so this project was overwhelmingly approved by the EDC when we got our special use permit a year ago. But now it seems like the EDC is not behind it. I just have to wonder if this does represent what the EDC wants to do over just one person's view. I also want to talk about the highest and best use of this property. There is no utilities to this property. There's no water, there's no sewer. This is not Fifth Avenue, New York. There's no retail of Saks Fifth Avenues that's going to come here and spend money without having a water or sewer utilities to the property. This is the highest and best use for the property. And I also want to address the comments that were made by the fire marshal. We were suppressed last meeting and not able to defend ourselves. She said that the plan was for our water supply had changed from the original plan. Well, I have the plans right here. And on that plan was 2 wet ponds, detention ponds. There was never any underground water storage included in there. We have been approved by Bert, Keith, and Shauna. This was in line with the International Building Code, and we even hired a fire expert at our own cost. We are small business folks spending our own money. We're not part of a larger fund with a bunch of investors. This is our hard-earned, saved money. We have wives and young kids. We're spending our time away from them to choose to be here. We evaluated hundreds of other sites and determined this was a great place to invest our money and spend our time. And now it's going to be evaporated with just one rush and uninformed decision. This is a classic bait and switch. So Theo, Yvonne, Chase, Landis, Mayor Skipworth, I want to figure out a solution here. We've been nothing but accommodating. We'd expect the same level of respect from the city. This was overwhelmingly approved by council and EDC, and I want them to reconsider the opinions on this matter. So I would love to have a meeting at some point. Theo has offered to meet with us in a couple weeks. With the blessing of this council, we've engaged architects, engineers, fire experts, TxDOT, Galveston County Well Permit Division, drainage experts, spending money after dollar of real money that's ours that could have been spent on a vacation or our child's education. So please stop holding this corridor hostage to views that are impossible to achieve without having any utilities to this site. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to items. Oh, we have one other speaker, Mr. Charles Marcus. If you please repeat your name and your address. Come on up.
Good evening, Council. My name is Charles Marcus. I reside at 2905 Timber Drive here in Dickinson. And I'm here tonight to just make a formal introduction to my new nonprofit here in Dickinson. The name of the nonprofit is the Dickinson Music Enrichment Center. We provide free music lessons for children at a certain economic threshold here in Dickinson. And things are moving along fairly briskly right now. We should be opened up in January. The Holy Trinity Episcopal Church gifted us use of several of their classrooms to carry out our mission and provide our lessons for the children here in Dickinson. And I just want to let everybody in Dickinson know that right now we have a musical instrument donation drive going on. And if you got any old unused instruments laying around, you can drop them off at the Dickinson Library or visit our website at tdmec.org, and you can sign up, and we'll be more than happy to come by and pick those instruments up from you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7, the consent agenda. The following items are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion on these items unless the council member requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed after the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Simpson, a second by Councilman Wilson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item 8, public hearing and action items for public hearing. Item 8A, conduct a public hearing concerning an amendment to Chapter 18-20, Property Owner Notification, and 18-24, City Council Hearing and Action of the Code of Ordinances. A, to increase the mailing distance requirement. B, to remove the certified mail requirement. C, to add the required publication requirement. And D, to change the responsibility of notices from the applicant to city staff. We'll convene this public hearing at 7:34 p.m. and we'll begin with the staff presentation. Yvonne, please.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. So staff is actually proposing a couple of different changes to the notice requirements for all of the different zoning applications that get brought forward to Planning and Zoning, Council, and Board of Adjustments. So among those changes is the first one is to increase the mailing distance requirement. Currently, state requires actually a 200-foot distance, and staff is actually proposing to extend that to 500 feet. The second amendment that we're proposing is to remove the certified mail requirement. So this graph actually shows the number of notices that were sent for 10 cases at the certified mail rate, and then what it would be proposed with the 500-foot distance and the standard rate. And as you can see, the notices will about triple of what we're sending currently. The third change is that we are proposing is to add the required publication requirement. This is a requirement that is actually already in place by local government code. So this just aligns the Dickinson code to local government code. And then the fourth change is to make the notice requirement responsibility of city staff instead of the applicant. City staff's already assumed this responsibility, and so to make sure that notices are done correctly, we'd just like to maintain that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have public comments. We do have one public comment. Oh, we have John Harris. Where are you at, John? There you are. Okay.
Name's John Harris, 3711 Royale Drive. I'm not sure where we got off track here. My intention originally was to recommend that City Council accept this proposed change to this ordinance as recommended or approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Planning and Zoning Commission made a recommendation and voted unanimously to go to 1,000 feet and not 500. And maybe it's just my poor hearing, but I thought I heard Ms. Briscoe say 500 feet. So maybe there's some disconnect here, or maybe it's just my poor hearing, but it looked like to me it was 500. Planning and Zoning recommends 1,000, and we approved that 2 weeks ago. So I would strongly encourage council to accept the planning and zoning's recommendation. I recognize it's just a recommendation. There's no obligation on your part to accept that, but yeah, I think most of you have heard me speak before previously about 200 feet is just not adequate, and 500 is not much of a change. 1,000 would make a much better, I think, a better notification for the citizens, and I would encourage you to consider changing it to 1,000 feet. The rest of it, we're all good with. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Staff or applicant rebuttal. I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Yeah, I would add that after Planning and Zoning Commission, there were some statement made, some questions asked that at Planning and Zoning Commission, staff was not prepared to answer. If you had a chance to review the staff report, the commission report, and added onto that was a staff update. So I actually went back and I reviewed a bunch of different cities, 25 cities or so, that are all within the Houston metropolitan area. And the 500 feet is more than any city actually requires. The highest requirement was Mont Belvieu and Baytown, and they require 300. Seabrook requires 200, but strongly suggests 500. So it's not actually a requirement. So I'm proposing something that's over and beyond what any other city actually currently does, and then still extending that increase. And that's all staff has.
Okay, thank you. And we'll adjourn this public hearing at 7:38 p.m. And we'll move on to item 8B, consideration and possible action on an ordinance concerning an amendment to Chapter 18-20, property owner notification, and 18-24, city council hearing and action of the Code of Ordinances. A, to increase the mailing distance requirement. B, to remove the certified mail requirement. C, to add the required publication requirement. And D, to change the responsibility of notices from the applicant to city staff.
If I could just jump in real quick, Mayor.
Okay.
Just real quick, just wanted to just kind of add on to say is that at least from the, as far as staff is concerned, we are going to work with whatever notice requirement that the council wants to work with. Like I said, anything, whether 500,000, something between or less or more, we will work through it. Truth is that a lot of the administrative burden is we handle very well because of the mapping software that we have. We can set radiuses for a lot of it. It pulls the addresses. It just becomes the only added is going to be needing to stuff the envelopes and mailing them. So I just want to kind of because I know that might end up being a question of administrative burden.
All right, do we have a motion? Do we have a motion on this agenda item? To approve or to approve with a change or for all of it? It's AB, so it's just saying that those are the changes that.
Okay, but I was just saying you're in the public hearing, so.
Well, the public hearing's over. I adjourned it. So you would.
Yes, I moved.
Okay, you move to.
I move to approve the action items as presented at the 500 feet instead of 1,000.
Okay. Is there a second? All right, we have a motion and by Council Wilson, a second by Councilman Linton. Discussion. I actually kind of like to lead it off. I actually, to be honest with you, when I first read this, I actually thought about 1,000 feet in my own head when that came up. And I'll kind of tell you why, that I think, I hear what you're saying about it's more than any city does, but that isn't always in and of itself reason to, to say to do something or not. But I'd also add that we get a lot of people that talk about that they didn't hear about this and about these kind of changes, and that's not an uncommon thing. And I kind of have my thinking is it doesn't hurt. I mean, there's some stuff in envelopes and such, right? But I don't think it really hurts us to notify more people about a potential change. It just makes more people aware. I don't really want to be in the business of not, making people more aware when we could. So that's just my thought. So I can't move to amend it, but I would like to see it maybe be 1,000, or maybe we split the baby or something. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Councilman Wilson.
Yeah, could I ask the gentleman that was with our planning and zoning? Yes. Could you mind exactly what was the reasoning What was the reason that P&Z recommended 1,000?
Yeah, just come on up and,
Yeah.
just so everybody can hear you watching
I
online.
mean, you said they recommended it, but I'd like to know why.
Because going from 200 to 500 is only 300 feet.
Okay.
We're not talking about a significant number of people that would be increased, or the notifications would be increased. When you go to 1,000, now you've got a broader scope of people, and as the mayor said, and I have to agree with him, the more people that know about these changes or the possibility of a change, the more opportunity that you have as council to hear their feedback. If they don't choose to come up here and say anything, then they've got no reason to complain. But if they come up here and let you know their thoughts as their elected leaders, then you can have a better opportunity to make a decision. Frankly, I didn't think I'd get another shot at this or another bite at the apple, but I don't know why we have a Planning and Zoning Commission if we're going to make a recommendation, a unanimous recommendation, and then staff's going to come back and change it. Why bother with bringing it to us?
Mayor, at this time, I'd like to amend my motion to change it to 1,000 feet.
All right, Councilman Linton, do you agree to that?
Yeah, I was, based on.
Okay, so you agree to, you can speak to, I just want to make sure it's clear that you,
I do agree.
okay, so go ahead.
And I also wanted to add, so the research I did also indicated that your findings, verified that it's excessive for most of the communities in the area. So we would have the most. I also agree with the gentleman out there that 1,000 feet, but what is the line, what is the max here? Is it going to be 5,000 feet? Obviously, 1,000 is more, going to provide more of an impact than, a 300 foot increase. Average size, are we talking about average size lots, or, are we talking about like Humboldt Camp Road where people have acreage, where it's going to only impact one house?
So,
Or one property.
The way the code of ordinance works is that it is based on the property line itself.
Property line
And
itself?
that's any, so this ordinance would be whether it's a, 50 by 100 foot lot or multiple acres of land, you will have to emanate out whatever footage from
Right.
that property
And
line.
if the adjacent lots are more than 1,000 feet, then that only one lot's going to be impacted. So it goes back to my original question. At what is the maximum here? There's just not a lot of data that I could find to find kind of a sweet spot. But I have no problem with 1,000 feet.
Every city has a data point.
Yes.
I would like to add to that. Staff's initial recommendation to Planning and Zoning Commission was for 500 feet if the proposed change was in designed open space, rural residential, conventional residential, manufactured home, or small lot residential, and 1,000 feet if it was heavy residential, commercial, industrial planned development. So we had a little bit different of an initial recommendation, just changing based on whether it was residential or commercial proposed. And then, I don't know how much y'all got into the staff report, but I actually did the analysis on all of them. So if it was a 500, if it was 1,000, if it was split. So that's part of the reason, P&Z asked me some questions that I didn't have answers for at that meeting. And then after that meeting, I went back and did a lot of it and made this other recommendation. So that's why there's a little bit of a difference between.
Once again, I couldn't find a max. I did the research. I've seen your results, and I did my own, as I usually do. But I trust that y'all have accurate data. I just don't know what the max is going to be. I'm fine with 1,000 feet. 500's an improvement. Obviously, it seems to be, in some people's opinion, a negligible improvement. But I'm okay with 1,000, so I would approve it at 1,000.
Councilman Decker?
I'm okay with 1,000. You talk about notifying people. We got a minimum circulation of the Galveston paper. Removing the certified mail requirement is one where you're going to cut off, that helps, where you're going to cut off people knowing about it. How many, since you've been here, certified mail have you mailed?
So honestly, the 10 cases that were actually shown on this previous slide, those were all cases that have happened since I've been in this position. Those are just 10 that have been most within this time frame. Honestly, not having the certified mail means I'm not going to get certified mail back. I think people are going to open the letter from the city and not, if they don't have to sign for it. So I would probably say over half of the letters that I send out, do I actually get returned signed? In most cases, I'm just getting the letter back unsigned and not delivered. So part of that, is because that certified mail requirement is stopping people from actually getting the notice.
But when they see that they are getting something official from the city and they're signing off on it, they turn it away. They do refuse to sign.
Councilman Brantley?
Yeah, a question for City Attorney Jeremy. I know within the Texas Property Code, there is some requirement on mail receipt. Does this fall within the Texas Property Code? I know some parts of the code require that doesn't require certified mail. It requires proof of receipt. Is there anything that would put us at any kind of risk or liability without a proof of receipt?
This falls under Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 211. And your requirement is to put it in the mail.
Okay.
Mayor?
Councilman Simpson?
Yeah, I guess to try to backtrack, I'm a little confused on what actually happened at P&Z, because the packet says it wasn't approved at P&Z, and then I'm hearing there were different length requirements, whether it was residential versus another type of property, and then Mr. Harris is saying that it was approved unanimously, so I guess which did all of that happen? Or
So yes, kind of all of that happened. So what actually happened at Planning and Zoning Commission was staff made the recommendation for 500 for most residential and 1,000 for most commercial. And then what the commission actually did was they recommended approval with the amendment that the property owners within 1,000 feet is what would be noticed. And they did vote unanimously for that recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other questions or comments? Okay.
So,
Councilman Brantley?
yeah, I will say, and not to split hairs, but we're talking about the difference between 200 feet and 500 feet not being a lot. I will say that is a long way. Considering 1,000 feet is a tenth of a mile, it's still a good distance. 300 feet is a good distance. So my question is what type of burden is this going to put on developers with the increased notification?
Well, I think that, if you kind of look at this right here, if we were going to keep the certified mail requirement and do 1,000 feet, it would have been an extreme burden, I believe, on developers. And it's not even just developers. I mean, if someone bought a piece of property and, and they are, it looks like it's residential, but for whatever reason, in 2000 when they zoned it, it accidentally got into commercial. Now they're having to do some rezoning work and things of that nature. If you had to do certified mail on, say, if you're in a residential area with a lot of small lots, could very easily be 115 certified letters going out, which would cost you, it could cost you like $1,000 to rezone your residential lot. So but if we drop that and you go with standard mail, now you're looking at, $57. So I mean, I think if we do both, it's going to be fine. If we keep the certified mail and go up to 1,000, I think we may get some pushback from people. And I'm not talking about developers. I'm talking about average, citizens.
I'm going to recommend just a couple different add-ons to that. So a couple of numbers from what I actually have in the staff report is current letters that were sent were 213. What was proposed at the 500 would increase that to 715 letters. If we were to do the 1,000, that actually jumps that up to 1,785 letters that are sent. And I would say that it's maybe not necessarily a burden on the applicant, other than more people hear about it. Staff's going to do the letters. But when you look at some of these properties that had notices, and I'm going to draw attention to like 23rd Street, that is a residential property that applied for a variance. Their notices, certified mail, for just 25 letters was almost $200 that they paid. If we're going to increase that to 91, which this is the 500 level, their rate did go down. But if we're going from 3 times the number to 6 to 7 times the number, that number's going to at least double probably. So they're still going to be spending $100 on letters. And that's for a residential property to have a variance. So it's not only developers and zoning changes, it's everything that goes to a public hearing. And the smaller the property, the more that's going to get, the smaller properties that are around it, so the more people that really get notified. Does that make sense?
Well,
Larger
yes,
properties
yeah,
have
because
larger properties around them.
So what happens is, so as you're going to build out this deal, if you're in a neighborhood, basically an established neighborhood or a subdivision, your cost of being able to vary anything of any type or change a zoning will now, be exponential because of that. Again, we can do it. It's not a problem. The big thing we need to be keeping in mind is like I said, the 57 cents on regular mail probably makes this a lot more negligible. But just understand, that it does add up, especially in residential areas, because a lot of the commercial areas, 1,000 feet's not going to cover a lot of parcels. Perfect example is like the far east side of town. 1,000 feet is not, even 1,000 feet's not going to reach.
It's like 4 lots.
Yeah, it's not going to be a whole lot. But if you're in, Bentwood or you're on Oak Drive, and now all of a sudden you have to, if you want to have a variance on your property, you have to radiate out 1,000 feet on notices. Think about that. That's who's really going to, you're it's weird to say it this way, but you're inversely, what you think you're doing, you're actually doing the opposite. You're actually inverting that burden at some level. So I just want to just be clear on that,
And I hear that. I think kind of what you said, though, is true, that if we were doing that and still doing certified, I think it would be this ridiculous burden. It's going to cost more money, it is, but I don't think it's going to be, the sums that we're hearing aren't so much that they make me say, this is insane, I guess is what I'm getting at, personally. But,
Well, to increase it to 500 and for a trial period to evaluate those costs? And then we at least establish a baseline?
We could change it, and then I could bring it back, say, 6 months from now and give you something similar, and y'all could revisit. Is that?
500 for now, and then 1,000 if necessary. That would be.
well, we'd have to approve 500. We can't.
Of course.
You can't, I don't think we can do it that way. It would have to be a deal where we do, you have to amend it to 500, but then you have to let staff know if there's a certain period of time you'd like it to come back.
Y'all can say to bring it back in April.
Or whatever we want to do.
And Anna will put it on the agenda because she's better at that than me.
And we wouldn't have to vote on that. I think we could just say that. Is that
Yeah.
correct? So, but the first step would be, so the motion has been changed to be 1,000 feet. So if we wanted to go that route, somebody would have, Walter or would either have to want to change it back, or someone would have to move to amend to change it, and then we'd have to.
Option is to keep it as it is
Or
and
do
do
nothing.
that for 6 months, and see.
I would think that, I think we should go with 1,000, and then in 6 months, review it about either making the changes that is recommended by planning to go with 500 for residential and 1,000 for industrial. To me, I think you'd subtract rather than keep adding to it.
Okay, so if he's not willing to amend his motion, someone can move to amend it.
So to your point, and I just made a comment to the mayor, if staff believes that 500 feet is sufficient, however, our volunteers in planning and zoning have done the research, and they believe that it should be 1,000 feet, then why wouldn't we just say, okay, let's test out 750?
Has anybody ever come to the city to try to put a business down and said that XYZ is too far for us to have to notice for the variance? Has that ever happened?
No, because we're at the state minimum.
Okay.
Right now, we're at the state minimum.
You ever heard that happen at any other city any of the staff members have ever worked at, where they say, you know what, I was going to come to this city, but 400, 500 feet's too long. That's just...
No, that's not going to be like I said, I think your bigger issue really is not going to be, here's the thing, a large developer on a large tract of land, the notice requirement, they're having to pay that I mean, truth be told is, are they going to stop a $20 million project over $1,000? You know, that's not it. Like I said, I think I think to that point, I think what you want to look at, and I think the 1,000 feet and come back in 6 months, report on where we're at would be good. What I would say to you guys is that one of the things I think you're going to see, and actually you can actually kind of see it on that chart, is that the properties that are going to be affected and have to pay more are not going to be the large developers. It's going to be the people that live in the established neighborhoods, and this actually bears out on the sheet right there, because if you look at those addresses, that's who it's going to be. Again, not a big deal. I'm just saying that, but I think the idea of, I guess one of my point is that financial burden is not going to be the issue on any of them.
I have another question. So are there any cities that do it this way? So it seems like the issue here is in a rural area, even 1,000 feet doesn't really make much of a difference, right? Maybe 2,000 feet wouldn't make much of a difference, right? And so the thought is, well, let's increase their area to maybe touch more people, right? But as you know, maybe then we start adding a lot of financial burden on people in established neighborhoods. Is there any city or maybe a way to do this where you do distance or a minimum amount of lots? So that you say, is there anyone that does? I'm guessing by your face, no. But if you see what I'm getting at.
Mayor?
You're trying to calibrate it to, yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I put the initial as, if it's something that's being proposed that's residential, it's 500. They're more likely to have the smaller lots. They're going to notice, more, about 3 times the people.
Yeah.
And then if it's zoned commercial, industrial, PD, then do the 1,000 for them, because those developments are typically going to affect more of the area around them, right? And so that's partially why I did that first initial recommendation kind of separately that way.
Okay. Well, so what about that? Because that would seem to maybe address what we're getting at, is that.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, like I said,
differentiate, because there's no reason we couldn't differentiate if we wanted, right?
You can differentiate it. Like I said, I mean, really, like I said, we can do either. I mean, I'm really not opposed, especially if we're going to come back in 6 months to do 1,000. And look, and if in 6 months we're like, hey, everything we were kind of saying about the residential, it is, quite a bit more. We can come back and rediscuss it then. But I mean, any of the options are fine. We will work with whatever it is. So.
So the problem is we have options. So we have to figure out what option to do. I mean, the current option, if we just vote, we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, and those 3 options, correct me if I'm wrong, are setting it at 500, evaluating in 6 months, April, is that 6 months from now? Evaluating 6 months, and then increasing or decreasing, if necessary, adjusting, or setting it at 1,000 and adjusting if necessary, or splitting the difference at 750 and adjusting if necessary.
Or the original staff recommendation of per zoning district, 500 for the more residential and 1,000 for the more commercial type things.
Yeah, I thought we were referring to just residential at this point.
I think you're referring to
On
all of them.
everything.
Okay, this is going to be
everything
covered, okay.
All right, so at this point, I'm going to say, does anyone want to make a motion to amend the current motion? Because if you don't, then this is relatively straightforward. Speak now. I'm about to call for a vote. Okay.
A motion to amend the current motion on the floor to 750 feet.
All right, so there's a motion to amend from 1,000 feet to 750 feet. Is there a second?
I second.
There's a second by Councilman Linton. Is there discussion? Yes. Is there discussion of the amendment? Okay, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. I'm going to vote no as well, so the motion carries. And just be clear, I voted no. I actually think maybe a better way to go is to differentiate between commercial and residential, but I will probably vote for the final motion. But
Who was the second one that voted no?
Decker, myself.
Thank you.
Yes. He just voted to avoid a tie, I think. Walter, anyway. Though it would have just been it failed, so, okay. Okay, do we have any discussion of the now amended motion for 750? Now, is the intent here, do we still want to evaluate this over, say, 6 months and then come back? Is that still the
I think
desire?
that's reasonable, yeah.
Okay. No, it does not. We'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. With Councilman Decker voting no, the motion carries. Okay, it's always the things you don't think are gonna. I told my wife, nah, we'll be home real early tonight. And I did say that when we walked out. Nah, not on agenda tonight. Okay, moving on to item 8C. Conduct a public hearing concerning the City of Dickinson's Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Application. We will have a public hearing, and we will convene that public hearing at 8:02 p.m. We'll begin with the staff presentation. Theo, are you doing that, or is someone else? We're doing it now.
I guess I'm going to do it then. So, CDBG block grant mitigation project. Let me go ahead and pull it up for you guys. I think Chase was supposed to be doing this, but y'all can handle it for me? Okay. I was going to have Chase do it. Michael, we'll have Michael that'll come up and do the presentation to save me on this one, because I think Chase is at a facility strategic plan for the school district.
He's here.
He did, but he left.
You made it back? I thought that was Mike's job. No problem. I didn't know you'd walked in. I would have called you up and let you just kind of talk about the work we're doing. Yeah, you should have just kept going. Anyway, Chase, I wanted to have Chase come up because I know he's been working with Michael, with Catherine and so forth on the CDBG mitigation application as well. So, Chase, if you want to go ahead and introduce our folk for this one.
Yeah, yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Public management works on these applications for the city, and that's we work together with them, and we have many of them going on. So, Mike, you want to?
Yeah. Michael McGough, I'm with Public Management. We work with the City of Dickinson on numerous grants that are going on. Right now, of course, the city is receiving an allocation of $15,761,000 from the General Land Office. This number was developed by HGAC through what they're calling a method of distribution. HGAC had about $488 million of community development block grant mitigation funding that came as a result of Hurricane Harvey. And the city worked really hard to advocate for why money should be coming to Dickinson to help recover from Harvey and mitigate the impact of future disasters. And so with that, y'all are getting, like I said, $15,761,000. Eligible uses for these funds include water improvements, sewer improvements, road improvements, drainage, generators, and green infrastructure. The application is due January 9th of 2023, so relatively not that far away. This public hearing is just the first step in opening up this application process for the city, and eventually we'll have to come back. The final application that we're hoping to submit hasn't been developed just yet, but that will have to go through a public comment period, and then at the very end, City Council will have to approve that application before it's submitted. So y'all will see the project, of course, before it is submitted.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to public comments, of which there are none. And we will adjourn the public hearing at 8:05 p.m. And we have no other item attached to this? Okay. Understood. Okay. Move on to item 9, action items for consideration. Item 9A, consideration and possible action concerning a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, creating the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, the committee, and providing for policies, procedures, and guidelines for the committee. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
A motion by Councilman Brantley. Is there a second? And a second by Councilman Simpson. Is there any discussion? Councilman Linton?
Yes. So I believe that my mom is being considered for this, so do I need to recuse myself from this vote?
No.
All right.
Any further discussion? But it's good of you to ask, very ethical of you to ask, which you don't have to,
Mom is here, so.
Well. Okay. Let's take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item 9B, consideration and possible action concerning an ordinance of the City of Dickinson, Texas, amending Chapter 12 Offenses Miscellaneous, Article 2, Noise, Sections 12-6 and 12-20, sections 12-26, and 12-27 of the City of Dickinson Code of Ordinances by prohibiting unreasonable noise at certain decibels in the City of Dickinson, Texas, from 10 o'clock p.m. until 7:30 a.m. of every day, providing a penalty in an amount not to exceed $2,000 for each day of violation of any provision hereof, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, providing for publication, and providing an effective date. And I need to note, before we take a motion, the decibel level is not specified in the item. So when you move to approve this, someone will need to say, I move to approve at a particular decibel level.
And just so the council's clear, right now it was set at 85, but you're going to lower that. So just whatever, when you make the motion, whatever number decibel level that you want to put in the ordinance, that's what the motion needs to include.
So we would, Council Wilson proposed 0. I don't think that, I think we might end up in court on that one.
And just so council knows, the reason it was set at 85, I think we did this a month or so ago, was because there's a in the state code, there's an 85 decibel level. That's where it's included. Everywhere else it says unreasonable, but that particular provision defines unreasonable as 85 decibels. And as you've seen, that can be problematic because that's a high bar. A lot of cities go under that, but a lot of cities do adopt 85 because it's listed in the state code that way. But nothing prohibits you from going lower than that.
All right, so does someone have a motion with a decibel level in mind?
I make a motion for 58 decibels from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
All right, so there's a motion to set it at 58 decibels. Is there a second? Second. There's a second by Councilman Wilson. All right, discussion. Oh, so you need to specify that as well?
I did.
Oh, till 11 to 7, okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Which lines up with what we had previously.
All right. Do you? You said, okay. Discussion. Councilman Simpson.
Yes, you can talk at 58. That's your dishwasher runs at 58. I don't know if that's kind of low.
So I don't necessarily disagree with you, but we do have constituents who have done some research. I did some research. Houston, San Antonio, Friendswood, Alvin, Webster, Seabrook are all at 58.
Question.
Council Wilson.
To the attorney, is this defendable?
I mean, it's defendable. You have to have a reading on that. Somebody will have to sue the city and saying that your level is not reasonable.
Now, I guess to Council Wilson's point, are you aware of any suits to this effect?
No.
So it sounds like some cities have it in their ordinance, and either they've won or not been challenged, I guess.
That's right.
Well, and I think that we also should consider that it's from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So we're not talking about the ordinance. My understanding is the ordinance would not change for 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're only talking about 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
And so what, kind of answer your question, how cities have been caught in this is that they'll just say something like ordinance will be like no unreasonable noise, and it's left, open. And so then circumstance determines what's unreasonable, and that's where cities have been caught. Here you're putting a specific decibel level, so it's a little tougher to
I would ask that why, I don't know that I really agree with changing the time. Why would we change the time back from what we said previously? That didn't seem to be the issue.
Was the 10 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. the time?
It sounded like you moved the time back. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the ordinance.
That was a mistake.
Okay.
Then I would like to amend my motion to be 58 decibels and
Leave the rest
time.
alone?
Yeah.
Okay. Council Wilson? Okay. All right, understood. Okay.
That's why I was asking if you changed your.
That's why I was kind of, okay.
I misread something.
All right. Councilman Linton?
I'm concerned, of course, about the impact to potential businesses that have live music, or even without live music in the area. There's a few. We don't have a lot, but we do have some. So I'm just concerned about them being inadvertently impacted by this ordinance. I know that some of these establishments are located next to neighborhoods. Right now, they exist in harmony. So that's my concern.
So I guess I would ask, have we had any complaints from anyone around any of our businesses since we passed the last ordinance?
I mean, the big issues we have are at, obviously the Starbucks is I think is the impetus for a lot of this, because they're allowing the pressure washing to happen at like 2 in the morning, which is completely unacceptable. But at 85 decibels, it's pretty high threshold, right? So, I mean, we just, it stays right at 84, 85 decibels at the property line. I will say to echo Mr. Linton's concerns, is I do think that probably Murray will probably get some, be a little hesitant, or at least they'll have some issues, because I do know that obviously they have live music where the bandstand is kind of along that property line with the residential, and I do know that there have been in the past call-ins due to the live music. So, it's not unfounded what Councilman Linton is bringing up. So, again, those are a couple of circumstances. I would also say is that, obviously there are numerous noise complaints that happen in residential between residences as well. So, I mean, we get a lot of noise complaints. So, it's hard to have that perfect overlay, so I understand, but I mean we will enforce it as.
But we also have a permit process, right? So if you're going to have live music, you can simply get a permit and.
Yeah, so that'll be something we can.
Yeah, well, in your last version of this ordinance that you passed, we built that in so that if there's somebody that's going to be consistently producing some kind of noise, they can apply for a permit that would and otherwise violate the ordinance, but you would authorize that in certain circumstances, and so that would address some of those, maybe music venues that are there if there's a procedure built into the ordinance for that purpose.
Another thought on this, and I'm just going to throw this out in food for thought, is that maybe if we're going to lower the decibel level significantly, does it maybe make sense to have it kick in a little bit later in that case, since the threshold's lower? I don't know. I don't even know what I think about that, but I'm just throwing it out.
Ordinance is written now, the time wasn't addressed at all. So if we're going to start adjusting the time, and there was 2 provisions that dealt directly with the decibel levels, but there's more provisions that have time associated with them.
Well, I mean, if you do want a time change, I mean, all we'd have to do is come back at the next meeting. We just need to bump it a meeting if y'all going to do anything other than change.
I'm more just at this point throwing that out just to see what people think about it. Like I said, I'm not even sure, because I could see moving the time, that causes other problems. So you're maybe just creating another problem. But.
So I think the only thing I would ask is if staff, if we pass it as it's currently motion, we have staff reach out to the venues that currently have live music, Murray's, Ronnie's Ice House, and make them aware of the ordinance.
Proactive on that.
And educate them on the permit so that they would be aware of the permit. And I think the permit should be a pretty simple thing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be hard. And what we'll do is, I'll work with Justin and our permit staff. Because there are one-offs, right? And then something like a Murray, Ronnie's, and things of that nature, where they are. It's recurring, so we can probably come up with a permit that can address the one-time use, and then like, okay, you're actually wanting to be permitted every Thursday and Friday night, or every Friday, Saturday night, or whatever, and we can put that together.
I have a question on that note. So let's kind of game this out a little bit. Let's say we have this permit, right? Well, let's say the company that does the cleaning for Starbucks comes just and says, well, I'd like a permit to make extra noise on these days at this time. Do we have grounds to deny that permit?
Dance to it.
I don't know if you can dance to it, but the permit is completely at your discretion. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the rule stands.
This would be like an SUP, essentially.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Okay. That answers that question, okay. And I think that lets us probably met out some common sense, I'm having a live music venue and it's across water and all of this, and it's not right next to your fence versus I'm power washing in your backyard, basically. I mean, okay. Yes.
Well, and I will be the first one to admit that I have said numerous times that I don't think we should be legislating based on 1 or 2 residents. However, in this situation, the commercial establishment has kind of forced our hand, and it's irresponsible the way that they've acted. And something has to be done, but I also think we need to be respectful of our existing businesses, and, you know, I think we can do that, and we can do it, respective of their enterprise, and not be burdensome, so.
Yeah, I'd echo that. It feels like, I mean, at the end of the day, we get paid the big bucks up here to make these kind of calls, right? And so that's, that's basically it, so.
I got some questions, thank you, Mayor, around that as well. In terms of it being defensible, is there anything regarding the quality or calibration of the decibel meter that's measuring the sound?
It's the police, isn't it?
Yes, it has to be a certain type
Yeah,
of meter.
well, that was going to be my next question about whether or not it's A or C weighted or flat, because 58 decibels C weighted doesn't sound the same as 58 decibels A weighted. It doesn't sound the same as 58 decibels flat, and so I'm just, in terms of defending it. I mean, I was an audio engineer before I became a pastor, so.
Did they have
So
a
what do
class
you
in
know
law
about
school of
this?
sound? Did they have a class in that, or no?
I'll just say that the 85 decibels is not classified in any way under the state law, and it says decibels. So, I mean, if you feel like that there would be something that very specific to the types of readers then that the police department has, then we can certainly build that into the code if you need it there.
I will also say that 58 decibels between 10 p.m. and 7:30 a.m. also helps us in other issues that we've dealt with as a city.
Dumpsters clanking.
Night parties at
Yeah. The mayor's house, yeah. Come on over.
Yeah, and being a musician, that's of course where I'm going to go first. And we only have a few of these establishments in town, but I want to make sure that those businesses aren't impacted. It's good to hear council kind of being open-minded about it. The permitting process, they probably won't like it first, but I'm sure we can get past it. We have some other problems that we definitely need to address, and that's understood. And just the last thing I'll say about it is that most of these two things. The live music really stops around 1 a.m. traditionally. Murray is at 10 p.m. So that would, they would fall under the realms of this ordinance. And the last thing I'll say is that, gosh, it just slipped out of my head.
It's worse.
That my memory's getting worse as I get older. That's what I was going to say. I'll think about it in a bit. But anyway, that's really all I wanted to say about the businesses. And anyway.
All right, I was going to say, do we have any other questions or comments before I call for the vote? All right, the motion on the floor is to leave the time alone, and it would set at 258 decibels, just to restate. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, executive session. We actually do not have need for an executive session this evening, so we will skip that one and go to item 12, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Motion by Councilman Wilson to adjourn, a second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:20 p.m.